EB review starts out with basic solving equations. This is how we started the second half of Unit 3 before we jumped into actually solving trig equations. We did some basic review of algebra skills because you have to use those algebra skills in the trig equations also. But if you can't do it with a basic equation, you're not going to be able to do it with a trig equation. Okay, so we did start with some basic review, and that's what we've included here on this review as well. And there will be a couple that are just basic solving equations on the test as well. Okay, so our algebra skills, we need to know to solve for x, we first need to get rid of these parentheses. So this -3 gets distributed. So the negative times negative, so that's positive 3x minus 6. Then we have minus 4x plus 3 equals 3. Now, for terms on the same side of the equal sign, we combine like terms. So 3x and -4x would just be -1x. -6 and +3 would be -3. And it's still equal to 3. Then we isolate the x by moving the constant. And then divide out the coefficient if there is one. In this case, it's just a -1. So x comes out to -6. Okay, over here, similar strategy. We'll start with distribution. Okay, so that becomes -8x plus 4. And we still have the plus 5x minus 2, all still equal to -19. So on the same side, we've got -8x and positive 5x, that's -3x. Then we've got positive 4 and a -2, so that's a plus 2. Now we can start moving terms. Subtract the 2. So that gives me -21. And then the coefficient is -3. Remember, a negative divided by a negative comes out positive. 21 divided by 3 is 7. All right. I'm hoping these are gimme questions on the test. Just review your skills. Don't make little mistakes. Be careful. Check your work. Write it all down. Okay, now these are a little tougher because you have to deal with fractions. We're going to do the same process. We're going to distribute. Okay, so remember when you multiply a fraction by an integer, you are just multiplying that by the numerator. Okay, so that is 18x over 5. And then over here, you can reduce first if you wanted to. You could see the 20 and the 5 are going to reduce, or you could multiply first and then reduce. It really doesn't matter. But that would be, you didn't reduce first, if you just multiplied 3 times 20, that's 60. So that's over 5. We still got 15 over here. And then you could reduce if you wanted to. You could say, okay, well, I know that that would just be 12. Okay, 60 divided by 5 is 12. Now I need to get the x by itself. So I'm going to subtract the 12 to the other side. That's going to give me 3. I've got 18x over 5, or that can be written as 18 over 5x. Okay, both of those are correct ways to write that. The x can be written in the numerator or next to the fraction as multiplication. I think when it's written this way, maybe it's easier for y'all to understand. I don't know. It doesn't matter. You can get rid of the 18 over 5 in 1 step or 2 steps. Okay, you can think of it here and multiply by the 5 first and then divide out the 18. Or you can think of it as a fraction that's being multiplied, that you need to divide out that whole fraction. And hopefully you remember, when you divide a fraction, it's the same as multiplying by the reciprocal. Because then the 5s cancel, or not cancel, but reduce to a 1, and the 18s reduced to a 1. So then it's just x. But remember, what you do to one side, you do to the other. So if I multiplied by 5 over 18, it's multiplied by 5 over 18 here as well. So then the 5 times 3 is 15 over 18. And if you can reduce, you need to. Both of these are divisible by 3. So that would reduce to 5 over 6. All right, over here, we've got x's on both sides. So we need to get to x's to the same side. But before I do that, let's try and move this constant first. So I'm going to move that by subtracting 5, actually. You know what I'm going to do? You could do it that way. Or you could get a common denominator and go and combine these to 1. Got a couple options. Most of you probably wouldn't do that, though. Most of you would probably just subtract it over. So I'll do that. Okay, so what you do to one side, you do to the other. Now, these are both constants. We can combine like terms, but to add or subtract fractions, you must have a common denominator. So right now, the 4 is over an understood 1. If I want to turn that 1 into a 4, I would multiply by 4. And so I would have to do that to the numerator as well. Okay, so you can think of this instead of 4 over 1, you could think of it as 16 over 4. That's the same as 4, minus the 5 over 4. Okay, so you can get a common denominator, so you could combine those. So they're both negative, so you're adding the 16 and the 5, so that's 21. So negative 21 over 4. That's where we're at. And we've still got the 3x. And then over here, we've got the x plus 7. Over 12. So I need to get rid of this denominator. So I'm going to multiply by 12. That means this entire side gets multiplied by 12. Okay, so that 12 gets distributed. Okay, so 12 times 3, 36x. Okay, minus. Now here, I'm going to reduce this first before I multiply. Okay, so the over 4, the 12 over 4 reduces. That's just a 3. So really, I'm just doing 3 times negative 21. If hopefully that makes sense to you. You understand what I did there. So that is just 63. So that let me get rid of all my fractions. Now I don't have to deal with any more fractions. Now I need to get the x's to the same side though. So I'm going to subtract this x since it's positive over here already. I'll keep it positive. Which means I'm going to get the constants to the left. So I'll add the 63. I'm left with 35x equals 70. And then we divide the 35. One more room. And that is 2. It started out pretty messy with all the fractions, but it came out to a nice integer answer. All right, so just make sure you understand your basic algebraic solving skills.